Do you remember how you used to draw cars as a kid with like the squished rectangle windows and like super oversized tires? Well, this is the Cybertruck, and Elon Musk just made your childhood dreams into a multi-ton stainless steel reality. Behold the Tesla Cybertruck. Just got a chance to roll up on one of these things. It's owned by a different YouTuber. His channel is Dennis CW, so feel free to check him out. He's taken this Cybertruck all across the country, but came through Las Vegas, and hey, I just had to see it. I got caught in the hype. But the interesting thing was, not only did it feel like a childhood toy come to life, it also felt like a car or a truck that was still under construction, that wasn't finished. Too much? Over the top? You love it?
I've already seen it on YouTube somewhere.
Seriously, it's like somebody took this low poly truck from the 90s and pumped it full of nachos, paper planes, and guitar picks. You could practically hear the 90s dial-up internet groaning from the sheer angularity of this thing. But in this video, I'm gonna look at whether the Stanley Cup of cars is actually impressive or just unfinished. Let's start by talking about the over-the-air software updates. That's what matters to me when it comes to Tesla cars. Because just being completely frank, like, even with the Tesla that I own, the Model Y, and the Cybertruck, I'm never really that into the electric aspect of it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with electric cars. Like, it is cool that they like zip forward really fast, but it's the software. Like, if it was a gas-powered car and it was exactly the same, I wouldn't have had any problem buying it. I want the smartest car, the car with the best, most reliable, most updated software. That's just me. I feel like it makes me safer. I want cameras on the car. I want software to help me drive. I want not just two human eyeballs, I want extra sensors all over the car that can get in between me and the pedal and the steering wheel to hopefully make my driving experience safer. So I think of vehicles now as platforms. They're like iPhones that need software upgrades. They're like laptops that need new operating systems sometimes. They need better ways to build applications on top of them. They need to be secured over time. They need to get smarter and safer and more reliable. So over-the-air updates, just think about this as an operating system like OS X, Windows 11, but it's the Tesla platform with the Tesla hardware. So a lot like an iPhone running an operating system like iOS, the two are paired together and they work better when the same company is in charge of both. Settings and navigation can always be updated, right? There can be new options added, the menus can be rearranged to be more convenient. New features can come online. In most cases, you don't really need like features in a car, so I think of that more as like things like Spotify or karaoke or some of the fun kind of things like the fart thing or whatever that's in the Teslas. Like, there is definitely in the code somewhere some loops that go too long. There's ways to optimize the code. There's ways to think and anticipate that are not implemented today that can make you get more miles out of less battery, use less electricity overall. Having new software all the time does seem a little bit risky. You might download something and it's not completely proven because it hasn't been actually put into the wild. But when you do put something out there and there's a serious problem, Tesla should make that a priority and push out the fix. So keeping the software updated all the time is pretty good. Maybe not being the first to download the update unless you know there's a serious problem out there, but it's kind of that chicken or egg sort of thing that the more that you're kind of towards the front of it, the safer you are, in my opinion. Software that recognizes accidents or maybe accelerates at times when it shouldn't, stuff that might really save your life. Now let's talk about what it is the software can actually control. Like, obviously the steering wheel and the pedal, but if you think about it, there's a lot of different sensors and there's a lot of different actuators in the car. So actuators are like, they move things. Like when the front opens and closes at a push of a button, that's an actuator. A sensor would be something like LiDAR or radar or the cameras. Probably the most important sensor on the car is the 8 cameras that give a 360-degree view around the vehicle. Now, these are absolutely crucial for self-driving. They're crucial for detecting all sorts of stuff in the environment that can keep us safe in the future. Now, besides the cameras, which kind of can judge distance. Now, there's 2 cameras that look forward. So like binocular vision, you can measure the difference between the cameras to get a sense of depth. But I know the ones on the sides and the ones in the back are just simple cameras, so they don't seem like they would have depth information, and that's where the ultrasonic sensors come into play. So an ultrasonic sensor is a non-contact instrument that measures the distance, velocity, and position of objects using ultrasonic sound waves. So it's like radar with sound. You make a noise, ping it back. So this is for parking assistance or low speed maneuvering where you're sometimes just feet or even inches away from something. So there's a forward facing radar that can detect distance, and because the cameras can sometimes be blocked by fog or mud, this is a great way for it to actually sense if the vehicle is gonna hit something. You're gonna run into a wall or a car in front of you or whatever. And of course there's the notorious LiDAR. Now this one's a tricky one to talk about because here is evidence that there are Cybertrucks, and many Teslas in general have been seen with LiDAR on them driving around cities. They're certainly interested in LiDAR information. Some of the older cars had it, the newer ones don't. Supposedly they're just running on camera vision alone. You know, my gut instinct is they should just be in all vehicles, but I guess as long as there's enough training data that they're getting from the specific cars where they want to put a fairly expensive device on the car, something that we'd end up paying more for if it was included in all vehicles. And then using that to augment the camera vision system, I guess that's what they think is better. Keeps the cost of the car down a little bit. It's one less thing that can go wrong. They can still collect that information where needed and add it to the visual training set. But there it is, clear as day from this video. It looks like a ski rack or whatever. That's a LiDAR sensor. And I guess I could see how in the future, if you want the cars to just run in the same way humans do, you don't want the extra sensors, you just want the same thing humans do, which is the 2 eyes. So I don't know. But I would say build these cars superhuman. Like, why just make them limited to the same way we are? Like, use all this other stuff. There's no problem using radar or ultrasonic in the cars. I don't get it. So another sensor that's deep inside the car is called the Inertial Measurement Unit, the IMU, and it's for detecting the vehicle's acceleration, the rotational aspects of the car. If it flipped over, it would absolutely know. It also knows kind of that force when you're taking a sharp turn and you can like feel that momentum pushing you to the side. And it aids in the stability and control and getting an accurate position compared to where the cameras are and all the other sensors. The car also has just general GPS. Kinda don't need to make the car safe, but you do need to just make the car convenient, like to know where you are in the world and which exits to get on and off the freeway, stuff like that. And there's a lot of pressure sensors. So when you're sitting on a chair, it can feel the pressure of you sitting on it, so it knows there's a person in that chair. When you're driving the car and it's self-driving, if you actually just force to the right, even if it doesn't want to go there, you'll see that there'll be a little bit of tension and then it will brake as you sort of like break out of the control in an emergency. So if you had to turn, it would just be like, I don't want to turn. And then it's like, okay, if you want to turn that bad, then we're going to let you turn. So those are pressure sensors. And all of those sensors can be both read from software, or software updates can read more information from them in the future, or they can be controlled through software. But that's not it. We also have actuators all over this Cybertruck. So there is software that can be tapped into that rotates each of the car's wheels independently. So the software can say, turn the front left wheel at a different rotational speed or a different torque than the front right, which is interesting. Like, maybe over time there can be these incredibly subtle neural nets that can learn exactly what the right kind of traction is for cars, and it can make these kind of decisions in a way that no other car ever has before. And now there's also an actuator in the steering wheel. So like I said, it knows the pressure when you're going left and right, but it turns the wheel itself. Like when it self-parks, it'll, turn the wheel, turn the wheel, turn the wheel, and you just see it happening right in front of you. And that's really cool because you can use software to emulate the drive-by-wire system. So when the Cybertruck is going really fast down the freeway, and you move it a little bit, it's not the same as if you move the wheel just a little bit when you're going slow. You want a little bit when you're going slow to maybe turn the wheels quite a bit, but on the freeway, that'll freak you out. And you'll be like, ooh, every little inch matters too much and makes me feel unsafe. You want a little bit more of a turning kind of, I don't know what you call that, but just like more space for turning. There's a braking actuator, so the actual pedal can be pushed down, and obviously you'd need that if the human reaction time isn't there and you're about to hit a wall. Like, they need the software to like press that brake. Now there's a bunch of different actuators in the cooling and the HVAC system, but surprisingly, there's also similar devices, actuators, that also heat up the battery and cool the battery down. Because you can imagine how if you're in a really cold environment, it might not charge correctly, or if it gets too hot, you could maybe have some, I don't know if they explode or what happens when batteries get too hot, but I guess it's just not a good thing. So you can use the actuator to cool it down. And the suspension has individual actuators. So kind of like we were talking about, the different wheels can rotate at different speeds. They're controlled independently. The different, I guess there's 4 of them. I don't know how many there are, but however many are part of the suspension, they can be controlled independently, which might make it so that if you go over a speed bump, maybe it like loosens the front wheel and then loosens the back wheel, like somehow, and it feels much smoother than other cars or something like that. And then the doors, the frunk, the trunk, they're all controlled through actuators too. So now let's talk about the brain, the computer, the self-driving, the FSD computer that's in the Cybertruck. So you can think of the hardware that's running this kind of like the way we have like a PlayStation 1, a PlayStation 2, a PlayStation 3. In the new Cybertruck, there is hardware 4. In the newest Model Ys and the Model 3s, there's something called hardware 3. So some of the upgrades are the amount of cores. It goes from 12 to 20 cores in the new Cybertruck. The CPU frequency goes from 2.2 gigahertz to 2.35 gigahertz. There's special processors that handle neural networks, which obviously is super important for these kind of things. One of the reasons I really like the Mac is it has the neural processing unit. There was 2 on hardware 3. There is 3 on hardware 4. And the frequencies on those are a little bit faster. And the actual cameras that go around the car are part of the hardware package, and the overall resolution of those cameras is going up from 1.2 megapixel cameras up to 5 megapixel cameras around the car. And then the actual piece of hardware that is the radar, the Wi-Fi, and the GPS are all being upgraded also. So when you put all of this together, what are the reasons why I think the current Cybertruck is essentially unfinished, or it feels like a truck that's not completed? And that's because we don't know a ton about it, like in terms of specs. We don't exactly know how many miles you get on a full charge yet. We don't know what the driving will ultimately feel like because they haven't collected enough data from the suspension and built a new piece of software to optimize that suspension. I mean, all these things should be getting better than they are now, but that's why I say it's unfinished. And before I talk about what is the absolute most important part about why this truck is unfinished, and that's the fact that it's a node in a network and the entire network hasn't come together yet to bring its full potential down to each of the individual cars. I'll give you just a quick thought on what the experience was like being in the Cybertruck, my opinion of like just, you know, the regular car review stuff. The inside of this thing is the most normal part, normal with quotes around it. Kind of the pedal layout there, the yoke everyone's talking about. It's not saying too much. Like the steering wheel, I kind of wish it was just round. Like I love the one on the Model Y, but I don't know why they didn't make it that way. But if they didn't, well, I don't know why they didn't make it more like a yoke too. It's just, or a triangle, probably a triangle the way Elon thinks about this thing, but whatever, it's just got a weird shape to it. And then there's this like infamous like bulletproof unbreakable window, which is hilariously memorialized on this truck that Dennis CW owns with that sticker decal that like has the shatter marks. Dude, that's hilarious. He's got the broken glass there from the softball. But it's crazy that it moves fast. Like I've thought about something Elon said a long time ago about when he drove in the semi truck and it would just like zip forward, and what a weird feeling that is to be in something so big. That's what this is like. It's like a refrigerator that's just like takes off, and that is remarkably fun. Just being in this like gigantic heavy brick that seems to defy the physics of cars felt cool. Not elegant. It felt nothing like a BMW or even like a luxury truck. It felt like a brick sliding down a water slide or something. My whole premise about this truck is that it kind of doesn't matter what it looks like, because the most important part about the Cybertruck is the network effect. Meaning each of these trucks is just a node being added to a network, and that's where the real value for Tesla's Cybertruck lies. So the main reason that I'm saying the Cybertruck feels like a prototype, feels like an unfinished product, is because I don't think Tesla ever intended for this to be a final product. I think they thought of it as a piece of hardware that had everything that they needed to finish the truck later with software. And to make that software as good as they want it, they're gonna need to collect data from the car. We have to pay the bill. We front the bill for Tesla so that we can own a cool car, something that gets looks and moves fast and like it's fun. But what they get from it is something that social networks have known for a long time. The true value is all of those individual nodes, like social media accounts, putting data up onto the system. We drive the trucks, they put the information from the cameras, the actuators back into Tesla's servers. All of that trains the future software, and there's a network runaway effect that just helps Tesla blow all the other car companies out of the water because they can't do that. From there, they have the Dojo supercomputer to train future models in a way that probably the other companies aren't ready to do the whole symbiotic system of hardware, software data collection, software over-the-air pushes, and training in the cloud. Like, you have to have all of those components come together, and then the total becomes more than the sum of its parts. And when there is a neural network that is just cameras to steering wheel, and it works superhuman well, Tesla's gonna be a different company. It's not gonna even be a car company at that point. It's gonna be something else. And if that same information can then be like downloaded into robots and like they're walking around your house and the things they learn about you by walking around houses gets translated back into the trucks and the other cars, and like then the whole thing just like Skynets together. The Cybertruck will be something very different than it is now. And if AI ever like wakes up and it becomes conscious on the Dojo supercomputer and it's like, oh, I think I'll just take all these cars and control the world through them and all the robots. So it'll be like, oh, okay, that's where Skynet came from. But hopefully that's just some science fiction stuff that's in my head and nothing we really need to worry about. But deep down, I kind of wonder. Thanks to David Shapiro, one of my favorite YouTubers, for joining my Patreon. Thanks for Rob for giving me $100 per month. That is crazy. That is most of the money that I make from this YouTube channel, sadly, at this point. But that's why if you could do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, help me get to my next goal, 10,000 subs. Thanks for watching.